2012 presidential auction, an 11-month process, and it looks like we aren't the only ones who are sick of it. Given a choice, an overwhelming majority of us, 70% of Americans, say they cannot wait for this election season to be over. I don't know what the other 30% are looking forward to, maybe collecting some campaign cash, I don't know. Just take a look at the enthusiasm among Republican and Democratic voters, nearly half not interested in casting a ballot for either President Obama or any of the GOP candidates. It is no wonder that in the past quarter century, at least 100 million eligible voters have stayed home during each federal election. It's something that has our next guest concerned, and he believes that while American people are asleep at the wheel, politicians are the ones getting the free pass. Andy Andrews is the author of How Do You Kill 11 Million People? Why the Truth Matters More Than You Think. Very provocative title.
It is. It's not really touchy-feely.
No. It's a sort of blunt and brutal, you know. This coming from a man who wrote a book called Greedy Bastards. So,
right.
So it takes one to know one. What's your point?
You know, the point started 5 years ago when I was looking to create something that would either scare people or make people mad enough to do something. And I thought, can I write something that doesn't say Republican or Democrat, doesn't say liberal or conservative, and yet everybody would agree with? And the idea came when I was working with some World War II history, and I realized that I thought, how did they do that? How did they do that? I mean, right, not what weapons do they use or what mindset does it take, but how do you get 11 million people to load themselves onto boxcars and allow themselves to be killed? And the answer is very simple, and it's being used today in different forms. The answer is very simple, is lie to them. And so I realized that the one thing that we all agree on is you could walk down the street, Dylan, and ask anybody, do you think it's okay for politicians to lie, or should they tell the truth? Every single person will say, oh, they should tell the truth, even if they're lying about it, right?
Yes. But the interesting thing is we obviously have a system. Forget the politicians right now. We have a system that rewards them for lying.
Rewards it.
If you are a good liar, if you are a good manipulator, if you are a good character assassin of others, you can become the president of the United States. And in fact, we are selecting for the most manipulative, the most weaselly. We are literally running a system that seeks to find the most competent weasel we can find to run the country.
You're exactly right. And it's said in such a way that even the good guys, whoever they are, know that if I don't tell these people what they want to hear, I'm not going to be elected. And we know we're being lied to, but we will elect them because of their lies. And so it's a scary situation in which the final thing, and this is in the book too, is when you look and you realize there are 545 people in America who are legally, morally, in every way responsible for every problem this country has right now. 1 president, 9 Supreme Court justices, 100 senators, and 435 members of Congress. According to our last census, there are 311 million of us. So 311 million of us, 545 million. Yeah, 545, you would think we could be able to do something. And we can, but not with that statistic you just last quoted about 100 million people not voting.
I wanted bring in a comment earlier today from Tom Brokaw offering his characterization as to why it is the voter apathy is as high as it is, and we'll talk about it. Listen to this.
As you know, I've been all over the country in the last couple of years talking to a lot of folks on the main streets of this country, and they've pretty much given up on the idea that Washington's going to help them very much, and I think that's reflected in their absence of enthusiasm about these candidates who are promising to change the world for them.
So how do you tell somebody with my worldview, the Democrats are bought by special interests. We watch Obama give the banks a massive pass. The extraction continues on that front. The Republicans are the only thing that makes Barack Obama look attractive as a political candidate because they're so darn nuts. You can't even believe that they're serious. And how do you? And there are a lot of folks who are sitting where I'm sitting, or with a version of that worldview. How do you convince them that they need to, that they have to, that they must overcome that cynicism? They must must overcome the frustration and disenchantment that comes with that, even if it's a correct evaluation. How do you get over that hump?
I think
Sell me.
One way we have to get over the hump is to let people understand that they really can make a difference. See, he is right to a great degree in that people have decided that they can't change anything. They can't do anything about it. But with 100 million people of voting age not voting in the past 25 years in federal elections, not a single election was won by more than 10 million votes. Every one of them was that close.
Fair enough. But if the election, the districts are gerrymandered. 75% of the districts are controlled by the politicians like kings over their own fiefdoms. I can't throw anybody out of those. 2010 was the biggest wave election in American history, and more than 75% of the Congress people kept their jobs because the districts are gerrymandered. Right. And so you're up against a sense where even if I do engage, or if I pick George Bush or I pick Barack Obama, everybody thought there was a huge difference. Well, they couldn't be more different between these two guys. And yet President Obama just as willing and able to perpetuate the banking system that's sucking money out of this country as George Bush was. How do you overcome the sense that the game is rigged? You
could make a great point that and a great conclusion that the only thing we can do is tear down the Tinker Toys and start over again in some way.
But we also know that
that's not realistic.
Right.
And so somehow we have to go back to the very basic, which is what I'm trying to do with this book. I created this book as a weapon, frankly, that people could use to give to their mothers and their brothers and sisters and say, this takes 15 minutes to read the entire thing. Cheap little book. Read it before you go to bed. Promise me you'll read it. Because the truth stands on its own. It's not owned by any political party. It defines itself and will define a group or an individual when we determine what that truth is and where we want it to be set into action.
So your antidote to the concerns that I would offer up would be that an awakened population would force even the most corrupt politician to alter their lives.
It is the only thing that ever has. It's the only thing that has ever kept. I mean, on the opposite point, it's the only thing that has ever led governments to disaster. I mean, because this 11 million, how do you kill 11 million people? That's referring to the Nazi thing that we all know about. But we could have used 61 million. That's the number that the Soviets' own records show that they killed of their own citizens.
In that same period of time.
In that same period of time. You know, there's countries all over the world, and it's still happening.
I'm going to stop you there because what you're making the most significant point there is to be made, which is it's easy for somebody like me or a protester at the Tea Party or a protester in the occupation to articulate how royally screwed up everything is.
Right.
It's royally screwed up. What is more significant, however, is to understand the stakes if we don't find the compassion to work with each other, however brutal. This is it's sort of brutality and compassion are going to have to work together, because if we do not do this, it was money printing in Germany in the 1930s that led to the inflation, that led to the rise of Hitler, that led to all those. And now we're in money printing. It was money printing when Nero was running Rome in 200 that led to all the massacre and murder that really prevailed over that. Do you think people realize how high the stakes are? Did you write this because you don't think they understand how high the stakes are?
I honestly don't believe they do, but I honestly believe they better. We're getting very close, and history shows, I'm not trying to scare people unnecessarily, but I am saying that this is not anymore about a Republican or a Democrat. This is about the very country. My parents, Dylan, died 30 years ago, and if they came back today, I'm not sure they would recognize this place. Right. And I have little kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, little boys. And I'm an old dad. I'm 52, but I have great hopes and dreams for my children. And I don't want to let certain people control this to the point that those cannot come true.
And the most important message is this, and problems like this have been fixed. We have had global debt restructurings. We have had amendments to the Constitution 27 different times. We have freed slaves, freed women, freed you. So for all of the horror, and I'm running out of time, but I want to leave it on the point that these problems have been fixed before, and we can fix them now.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to work with you to do that, along with every other person in this country. Truly,
honored to be a part of what you're doing. Excited about your book coming out next week.
Thank you. Yeah, Greedy Bastards: How to Kill 11 Million People. Who knows? I mean, with the books of 2012, this is a Richard Branson screw business as usual. Anyway, it's brutal out here. 11 million, How to Kill 11 million people, and perhaps the corollary book, How to Save 300 million people.
Right.
It could be your next book.